everyone out there. My name is Anna, and I'm one of the educators at the Vermont Institute of Natural Science, also known as VINS. We are a nature center, and our mission is to motivate people to care about the environment. So we do that in a whole bunch of different ways because there are many ways that we can all care about the environment. One of the ways is through education. So at our nature center, we do programs about our wildlife neighbors featuring some of our live animal ambassadors. We also do research where we do a lot of conservation monitoring work, looking at our local populations of American kestrels and broadwing hawks, dragonflies, flying squirrels, snapping turtles, you name it. We are interested in learning about it. And we also have a wild bird rehabilitation clinic where we see injured and orphaned wild birds. The members of the public bring to us for care. Our team there has the expertise and the resources necessary to help birds get better and get back out into the wild as quickly as possible. But sometimes it's not always possible. Sometimes they have really critical injuries. Think about a small bird that got hit by a car. That bird may heal their broken wing, but they might have a lot of trouble flying. So we offer those birds what we lovingly call a career change, and they become part of our education ambassador team. They stay here with us. We give them the care that they need in order to thrive, and in exchange, they help us do our education. All right, so starting us off, this is our very first ambassador bird that we're going to meet today. His name is Northfield, and he is a broad-winged hawk. I like to say that the guy who went around naming our North American species of hawks in English, he wanted you to know what you were looking at. So you've probably met or heard of a red-tailed hawk, is a hawk with a red tail, easy enough. A red-shouldered hawk has red shoulders, and a broad-winged hawk has broad wings. Now, what the broad-winged hawks do with these wide, flat wings, those broad wings, is they can soar very easily. This is something that all hawks really, to some degree, are capable of, but broad-winged hawks use their soaring ability for one very particular reason. Now, he can soar because those wings have a lot of surface area. They're wide and flat, and they can catch air up underneath them, so that when thermals form over the land, hot air that gathers over certain parts of the land. And as we know, hot air rises up into the sky. This hawk can just jump into that thermal and ride it up like it's an elevator. So if you've ever seen a group of hawks, maybe a group of vultures even circling in one particular area, maybe you were worried about your own mortality if you saw those vultures circling, but they were just taking advantage of a thermal to climb up in the sky on their wide, flat wings. When they get to the top of the thermal, where it starts to cool off in the sort of higher up in the atmosphere, then they'll use their broad wings to glide like a little paper airplane down across the landscape in the direction they need to go, get into the bottom of the next thermal, and circle back up. It's very, very easy for them to do. You'll often see these guys near mountainous areas as well, because another form of wind that they can use their broad wings to take advantage of are mountain updrafts. Our winds over here in Vermont, we're near the Green Mountains, the Appalachian Mountain Range, and our predominant weather patterns go from west to east. When that west wind hits the mountains, it has to go up and over, and it's in those updrafts that a lot of these hawks find a good place to soar. Now, this is also really convenient because our mountain range runs north to south, and a lot of birds, waterfowl, songbirds, as we know, they migrate south for the winter, especially here in Vermont. I'm sure you guys know in Ontario, our winters are a little hard. They're very, very cold, and for a broad-winged hawk like Northfield here, there's not a lot of food for him to find in the middle of winter. He's interested in eating small rodents like mice and voles and chipmunks and maybe even a red squirrel. But he's also kind of interested in eating reptiles like snakes and lizards and large insects like dragonflies, caterpillars, and grasshoppers. And there's really not enough of those around in the winter. So he has to migrate, just like those songbirds and those waterfowl. He goes south for the winter, looking for a better place to find food. And what better directions to follow, because he doesn't have a little personal GPS on his phone, than a north-south mountain range that's already supporting him with the mountain updraft winds. Broad-winged hawks are what's known as a complete migrant. So every member of their species picks up and leaves their breeding grounds and heads south for the winter. Now, one of the most interesting things about their migration is that they're very, very cautious about crossing water. And for a while, this was kind of a mystery. Why do all these broad-winged hawks funnel themselves down along the East Coast? Some of them get stuck down in Florida. They don't cross the Gulf of Mexico, but some of them do kind of cross over. They go along the coast of Texas. They go down through Mexico into Panama and Nicaragua and all the Central American countries until they reach the South American continent. But why not just go across the Gulf of Mexico? Well, when you think about their wings and their style of flying and how reliant they are on updrafts to push them up into the sky, over water, those winds are not that predictable, and they could get blown out to sea. They could have to flap the whole way to get all the way across the Gulf of Mexico, and that burns way, way too much energy they don't have to spare. They also don't fly for 24 hours. They have to stop. They have to find a place to hunt. They have to refuel themselves before they can keep going the next day. So it's really important for these birds to follow land. This is kind of an advantage for us as human beings, as scientists who want to study these hawks, because we get an insight into their population every year during their migration. Humans have, for the last close to 100 years, set up migration count sites at different advantageous points along the broad-winged hawk migration pathway, especially down in Central America, where all the broad-winged hawks have to funnel themselves before they get to South America. If you go to a count site in Costa Rica or in Panama, you might get to see several 100,000 of these little hawks migrating all at the same time, going all in the same direction, trying to get south to the rainforest for the winter, where there's plenty of things to eat. Now, Northfield himself, unfortunately, has never gotten the opportunity to migrate. He, when he was very little, fell out of his nest. And he fell a very long way. Broad-winged hawks love to nest in a big, tall hardwood tree where they're going to be safe from predators on the ground. And when he was just a fluffy, white, downy little chick, he came tumbling out of that nest onto the ground. Now, fortunately for him, someone came across him. The woman who owned the property where the tree was growing saw this little chick on the ground and thought, oh my goodness, this poor baby bird, what can I do? She knew about VINs, and so she gave us a call and said, hey, this is the situation. I think I have a baby hawk. I don't know what to do. And we said, well, bring him to us, bring him to our hospital. We'll give him a checkup to make sure that he's healthy. And then we might be able to re-nest him, depending on if the nest is intact, if the parents are there. We contract with a local landscaping company that has a big arm bucket truck, and they have helped us to re-nest many, many baby raptors in the past, just put them right back in with their parents. Unfortunately for Northfield, though, during his tumble down out of that tree, he had broken his shoulder, which is a very, very difficult injury to heal fully in a bird like this. We put him in a splint and a little body wraps to immobilize the shoulder to make sure it had time to heal. And after it had healed, unfortunately, it healed in the wrong configuration. You might be able to notice it's really subtle because he's adapted well to his injury over the years, but his wings are kind of not symmetrical. It's this right one that's closer to my body is the one with the broken shoulder. And when he tries to fly, he really loses altitude fast. He absolutely cannot get himself high up into the sky or sustain flight for a long period of time, which meant that we knew early on that Northfield was not going to be able to be released into the wild. So he's been with us being an education ambassador, as you can see, a little comfy education ambassador ever since. He and I actually started at VINS in the same month. He came in May of 2016, so he is going to be 9 years old this spring.